Welcome to 93.9 FM. This is Radio Lex, Lexington's only community radio station. I'm Marty Vaughan, and we are broadcasting from STEAM Academy, which is a high school, early college high school here in Lexington, Kentucky. And we're just having some fun. I'm in the studio today with a student that I just had in a journalism class. This is Isaac. Isaac, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Man, what's wrong with you? It's summer. Why are you even here?
I'm here because I love STEAM.
That's great. I love it. Well, Isaac came in today. He's helping me with some stuff in the studio, and we decided, you know what, we're going to go ahead and have ourselves a little show here. So thanks for joining in. And kind of the conversation that we were circling around here in the last couple of days was Fayette County schools and how budgets work and what are finances like for a school of or a district of our size. And so we just had this crazy idea that we would try to get Chairman Tyler Murphy on the phone. So do we want to try that now?
Let's try it.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to dial in. We do have access to the phone number, and so we're going to dial that in, see how things go. So, again, this is Radio Lex, 93.9 FM. Appreciate you joining us today, and let's see what happens. All right. Going to dial up.
Hello, this is Tyler.
Chairman Murphy, this is Marty Vaughan over at STEAM Academy. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Mr. Vaughan?
I'm fantastic. I am hoping that I caught you at a good time. We are in the studio today over at STEAM, and we're doing some podcast fun and possibly doing some stuff for Radio Lex, 93.9. We were just having conversations about budgets and finances in Fayette County and wondered if you would just love to play along and just talk about that for a bit.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. Always make time to talk to our friends at STEAM. I love the work that y'all do.
That's good to hear. Mm-hmm. So as I mentioned earlier, I've got Isaac here in the studio today, even though it's summertime. And Isaac's just done so many cool things in the few short years he's been at STEAM. Isaac, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good.
Isaac, I appreciate you taking some of your summer break to talk about school finance.
Thank you for taking your time out of your day to talk with us.
Yeah, I was asking Isaac. You know it's summer, right? I know it's summer. Yeah. So Chairman Murphy, we got on the topic of finance and just kind of wanted to pick your brain, inner workings of what's going on with Fayette County Public Schools. And it's a massive district with massive numbers. And, to the layperson, it can be a little like, I don't even know where to start. But can you talk a little bit about the budget and the financing and what's going into that currently?
Absolutely, Marty. One of the things, to think about in Fayette County Public Schools is we are the second largest employer in Fayette County. We have over 8,000 employees. We have 42,000 plus children in Fayette County Public Schools. We run the largest restaurant service in the city of Lexington. Our food service produces about 4 million meals a year. We have the largest transportation system in the city of Lexington with a fleet of over 200 buses. So there's a lot operationally that goes into running a district our size. And so when we talk about financing those operations, our first and foremost priority, of course, is student success and achievement. So that's kind of where we begin. And that's the key element of our strategic plan, which was developed with tens of thousands of data points from community input. And that's kind of what drives the work of the district. And our budget conversations as a board begins in January with looking at very preliminary drafts of the budget based on the current year working budget. And then we come together in February for a budget workshop as a board team to look at board priorities, evaluate data, and look at what prior investments have yielded for the district, and then gather feedback from stakeholders. We have a budget and finance committee with various stakeholder groups represented. We pushed out a community survey this year and got several hundreds of responses on that, which helped inform our feedback. And then our budget team put that together and presented us a tentative budget centered on those priorities. And for this year, a lot of the priorities are basically a continuation of really some key strategic and historic investments we've made in Fayette County that have really led to results. We've invested in growing our own initiatives to help recruit and retain educators. And we started last school year with 0 unfilled certified vacancies. Then our AVID program, which really helps with college prep and career prep, particularly for first-generation students. Our dual credit programming, which Isaac, I'm sure you've probably taken a few dual credit courses in your time at STEAM. That has really helped our students in our college with a significant amount of credits and saved families millions of dollars. And then, of course, our investing in pay for our staff. We started the school year with the highest starting teacher salary in Kentucky. We have the highest minimum wage for classified employees. We have attracted a significant amount of experienced educators into our district, and we want to make sure that we're prioritizing support for our staff. So the tentative budget is kind of centered around those priorities and those investments because, again, we've seen an impact. We've moved the needle in student achievement. Last year, for the first time ever, we don't have any schools labeled by the state as underperforming, which is unprecedented for a district of this size. So the question facing the board, right, is how do we continue these investments that have made a difference? While then the flip side, right, is the realities of the current economic climate. Neither one of you need me to tell you that we're dealing with increased cost all across the board. We're paying more for utilities. We're paying more for insurance. We're paying more for our bus fleet. We're paying more to feed kids because the cost of food has increased. And we're preparing for some very scary scenarios at the state and federal level where, last week, the Secretary of Education was in front of the Congress testifying about just terrible cuts to federal education funding. There's legislation going through Congress right now that jeopardizes child nutrition programs, that jeopardizes Medicaid, which, we run school-based health clinics here in Fayette County, and so that could impact us. So we're facing a lot of headwinds, and the board made clear from the start that despite the current economic climate, we want as much as possible to protect investments in the classrooms as we navigate this budget cycle. So I know that was a long answer, but I kind of hope it helped give you a broad overview and landscape of what we're currently dealing with here in Fayette County.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's, we're sitting here kind of just mapping some of that, of what you had to say. And I know Isaac's very curious about a lot of things. So Isaac, a little bit more about yourself as you, before you get into that first question. Tell us, you're entering your junior year. Is that right?
I'm entering my junior year, having the opportunity to, and next year I'll be going to BCTC, doing those dual credit classes with those opportunities. And even during this year, I got those opportunity to do an internship because of STEAM to support me to go to Frankfurt, see the Senate, and see bills being passed through the legislative session. I've had a lot of experiences where Fayette County and Kentucky as a whole is working hard to keep people here. I know my original career path, I was hoping to go into aerospace engineering, yet now through some opportunities through STEAM and through the Kentucky Transportation Program, I've become interested into going to civil engineering, leading me to go hoping to work at the transportation cabinet in my junior and senior year.
That's incredible. What was it that kind of triggered that shift in interest? Was it that exposure that you had at STEAM? Was it a particular class, or was it just the whole experience itself?
Exposure and opportunities to be out of class, to go experience those, going to a transportation cabinet, seeing the work they do from the testing materials to testing weight, strength, elasticity, to see all the work that they do to put into it to make our roads safe and strong. So I've had a lot of experiences where a lot of this has helped me from going to STEAM to having the opportunity to go to BSTC, going to do internships. Yet with prices going up and the funding going down, a lot of people are getting concerned about the budget and where things are going, and even with the increase in property tax. What is Fayette County doing to help combat this and moving towards the future?
That's an excellent question, Isaac. And, one of the things that we've got to be mindful of is the volatility, right, and the uncertainty that you referenced. I mean, we're fortunate because right now, as we sit here for the current fiscal year 2025, Fayette County is on budget. We're going to end fiscal year 2025 in the black. And so the conversations we're having now is preparing for the upcoming fiscal year, because we don't want to be in a position, given the current climate that we're in, where we're going to have to make tough choices. And so we've taken some steps strategically to cut about $9 million in expenditures at the district level, while not passing that on to schools like STEAM and to our classrooms, so that you and your peers can continue to have these opportunities. That includes about $1 million in reduction in positions through attrition at the administrative level. We reduced non-campus department budgets by about 20%. We've implemented tighter travel limitations moving forward, and non-essential overtime pay. And so that has kind of helped us make some key reductions. And then one of the other pieces of that puzzle is, as you know, Isaac, from your experience and in Frankfurt, is the other approach is also revenue, right? School districts, as you referenced, have the most common revenue stream for school districts, or the most common we hear about, at least, is the property tax, right? And we've been able actually to lower the property tax rate the past couple of years while bringing in additional revenue, simply because of the economic growth that we've seen in Fayette County. So we're fortunate in that regard. The current conversation centers around, okay, what other revenue streams are available to Fayette County that will allow us to continue these investments? And the current topic of conversation, of course, is this OLT, the occupational license tax. There's a provision in state law that says once a county reaches a population threshold of 300,000, then that unlocks an additional revenue stream, the occupational license tax of from 0.5 to 0.75. And so that's what we're currently looking at as a potential option. Again, this is something that we were eligible for back after the 2020 census, but we didn't go down that road because of the pandemic and the challenges facing folks at that time. So as we're planning for the future, that is a potential revenue path that we've been discussing.
Has there been conversations about what that OLT projection looks like over the course of a few years, or what do you see in the way of how that would bolster the budget?
Yes, so the OLT will raise an estimated $27 to $32 million annually when fully implemented. At this stage, if it's implemented for the current fiscal year, we would essentially get about half that amount starting January 1, so between 13 to 16 million dollars. And, one of the things that we've, again, got to keep in mind is we have to think both short-term and long-term. When you look at just the past 6 years, right, we've been able to reduce student-teacher ratios, right? We're at 13 to 1, which is one of the lowest in the state. We've increased the number of school safety officers from 40 to 84. We now have, we went from 30 and a half nursing positions to 53 nursing positions. We added air conditioning to buses, right? That was something that I heard almost as soon as I got on the board from our transportation team, is saying, look, when you're driving a bus in 90-degree weather, that's just unsustainable. And so we installed AC in buses. And then mental health professionals, we went from 30 in 2019 to 77. this year. And then the number of paraeducators, we've gone from about 700 to almost 900 now. So public schools have been tasked with so much more, and we're picking up so much more of the slack to support our students and families. But that the resources that we have to do that really hasn't fully kept pace in an environment of increased cost and threats, of course, at the federal and state level of cuts.
Tyler, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the arts. So I'm a Lexingtonian. I am a graduate of Lafayette High School. I'm a product of the music department over there, which did so much in the direction of my life. And even here at STEAM, our arts program is growing. We've got a theater department that has just blossomed. In the conversation regarding budgets and budget cuts, arts has to be part of that conversation. So I've got to ask about that. So where do you see that playing in, and how are you protecting the arts and what we're doing?
Absolutely, I think arts is vital to educational learning. I don't know, Isaac, are you involved in any type of visual performing arts or anything like that at STEAM?
I'm not fully personally involved in that. I am involved in my journalism class, but in plays and stuff like that, I am not involved in that though.
No, that's well, and look, the goal is that every student needs to be able to find a way to thrive in Fayette County Public Schools. And so we've made significant investments in arts education over the past few years. And in fact, one of the things we're very excited about is we received an historic grant. This was now granted, it was a federal grant of $15 million through the U.S. Department of Education's Magnet Schools Assistance Program that will allow us to invest in a visual performing and digital arts magnet at Harrison Elementary. This summer, for our second annual district-wide performance of a musical, Mamma Mia, I'm very excited about that. Last year we did Hairspray at the Historic Lyric Theater, and that was an incredible production. So we're doing the work that needs to be done to kind of break some of the silos that exist in Fayette County Public Schools and integrate arts across the curriculum. We've hired arts instruction specialists at the district level to then go out and support educators in the classrooms, because I feel like, as an adjunct educator myself, I teach social studies, but I feel like every educator can be an art educator, right? We can incorporate that throughout the curriculum. And then to our schools, which schools decide on their own staffing allocations based upon enrollment. But Fayette County is unique in that we've added an additional $30 million worth of discretionary positions to our schools. So when a school comes to the district and asks us and says, hey, look, we need an extra position that's not included as part of our allocations, the district provides the funding for that. And again, that's something that we're trying to be mindful to protect in this current environment. Because as you know, Marty, unfortunately, when people start talking about budgets and cuts and reductions, arts is usually one of the first places they turn, right? We see that in every institution from K to higher education. And we don't want to go down that road at all, because one of my favorite things is going to see students perform, because again, it's a way to meet kids where they are, and reach a student that might not have otherwise excelled in another area or opportunity.
That's the absolute truth. And, and I know you see it and I see it in the classroom on a weekly basis. It feels like there are moments where a kid just kind of onboards onto this, whether it's a play or an orchestra or visual arts, and they just find something that really clicks with them. And it opens up an opportunity. So it's really good to hear that your commitment is there. Tyler, when it comes to the size and scope of a district of this size, 8,000 plus employees, 42,000 plus students, it's massive and mind-boggling. And the conversation around the OLT, one thing that you might hear people asking is, how is accountability handled, and what do audits look like? Could you speak to that for a moment about how that works in the Fayette County program?
Absolutely. We as a school district, we have 3 audits, independent audits done annually. And for the last 5 consecutive years, we've had a perfect audit, which I believe there are only 30 plus, maybe 30 plus a handful of districts across the Commonwealth who have that distinction. And so I think that speaks to the attention of our finance staff to detail and making sure that we're following all of the appropriate financial standards in place. We make sure that we have an internal auditor. That was a new position created just a few years ago to ensure internal controls are in place. We have an ombudsman, essentially a reference line that employees can contact if they have a concern, and that is as of our last internal audit or our audit committee meeting, we hadn't received any complaints through that avenue. And I just mentioned our audit committee. We have an audit committee made up of stakeholders from across the community, folks who are experts in this field, who provide an additional layer of oversight. And then, Marty, our financial reports are part of every board meeting agenda, right? There's like a 53, usually 50 to 60 page document, itemized document of budget expenditures compared to actual expenditures compared to budget expenditures each month. We have our financial transparency dashboard that folks can go and track revenue and spending in real time, and you can go back all the way to 2022, I believe it is, on that dashboard. So we have tried as much as possible to make the information available. The portal for our budget is fcps.net/budget, where folks can monitor that information, submit feedback, look at kind of what's happening in real time. And again, the board hears a budget report every month at its board meeting, which are also broadcast and then again attached to the meeting agenda. So we take seriously, that folks expect accountability, and we are intentional about taking those strategic priorities, which again were designed with community input, and letting those strategic priorities, again, student achievement at the center of that, but also things like organizational health and efficiency, and then having that communication with our community, we let that drive our work. And when you talk about investing in the future, right, there's no better investment a community can make than in its public schools. And I think that's paid dividends in Fayette County. We've seen the results of that. Isaac's story alone is an example of the opportunities that we're creating for kids at STEAM and at the 69 other campuses across the district. And to me, that speaks volumes. One of my favorite parts of this role, Marty, is seeing our graduates walk across the stage, handing them their diplomas, because that's the culmination of this work. And all of those incredible stories behind those graduates at Rupp Arena is a testimony to this work that's happening in our district. It's not just dollars, it's not cents, it's not numbers. These are the stories of students like Isaac, who's coming in on one of his days off from the summer to do a podcast because of these opportunities.
Absolutely. It happens all the time when I'm out in the community and I'm having conversations with friends and family or hanging out at the pool, and people will ask, well, what do you do over there at STEAM? What's happening at STEAM? And when I describe some of our initiatives and some of our classroom experiences and community experiences, one of the most common threads I hear from people of a certain age or over 30 years old is, that sounds so wild that was not here when I was in high school back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And so I hear that constantly, like, wow, I wish that had been around. I can't believe that you all are getting to do those things and make those connections with kids. And so that creative freedom, I just speaking as a teacher, that creative freedom to be able to do that and to find that authenticity in the learning experience for students is what keeps me in the game. It really does.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Isaac's seen that. He's seen just that there's a certain energy and passion that happens when we get together, student and teacher, and we start to approach issues in life, problems in life, and try to solve those. And the critical thinking just skyrockets, and it's just really cool stuff. But for our listeners, fcps.net/budget, that was where they could get into the minutia of all of that. Isaac, you've been listening and taking notes. I know you've got at least one more question.
I got one more question. So as a student, I can see how for myself, I'm worried that some of these great opportunities are going to be cut because I'm concerned about what might happen in the future. And I know we're trying the hardest to make sure things don't get cut, things are as good as can be. But as a student and as other students may also be concerned, what can we do to make sure our education is safe and make sure our future for our education, for those opportunities from dual credit to STEAM to Lafayette Pre-Engineering to all these different programs, that we make sure they're safe?
It's an excellent question, Isaac. And I would say that our students are one of our most critical advocates, right? Like telling your story, because, unfortunately, you and I both know that we're in an environment locally, statewide, nationally, where our public schools are under attack. Right. That's just the reality we're dealing with. And we saw it last year when we pushed back against Amendment 2, the voucher amendment. So we've got to tell our story of the incredible work and opportunities that are happening in Fayette County. Our students are our most important ambassadors because you are living and breathing this reality every day. Our students are the core of our work. And I think, unfortunately, what's easy to get lost in a lot of these conversations, and there's so much misinformation and disinformation out there, unfortunately, is that, we are prioritizing students being able to have these incredible opportunities like the ones you've shared with us, Isaac, and helping connect those dots for our community to see that we're making a difference in Fayette County in the lives of our kids, and you are going to be the future, right? We're going to need civil engineers in the future, and the way that we build that future is through our public schools. We can't talk about economic development in Lexington and Kentucky, anywhere, without talking about our public schools. So helping us, joining us and being advocates for that work that's happening, because you all live it, you all see it every day. And I, as an educator and as someone who's on the school board, like I see it and live it every day. I think the mistake that we often make, unfortunately, is that we take for granted that folks know what we're seeing and what we're dealing with and know about this great work. But we've got to take a step back and remember that not everyone is as plugged into the day-to-day operations of the school district as they might otherwise be. So that, they're going to see a headline or they're going to see a social media post. So as much as we can break through that some of that noise and just get to the kind of the brass tacks of saying, hey, this is what's happening in our schools. This is what it takes to create these opportunities for kids. And this is the outcome of those opportunities. So much of it can't even be measured. It's just through these stories, like the story you've shared with me today, Isaac, and I hear that all across the district. And so I think that's the most critical part is sharing and telling your story and helping us show and demonstrate that our public schools in Fayette County are worth the investment, and those investments are paying dividends.
Chairman Murphy, you have been gracious to spend this much time with us. We didn't expect even this much time, but we just appreciate you taking some time out of your busy summer. You're still doing are you doing GSP stuff?
I am, yes. Yeah, I'm actually, this is our planning week, and so I'm at Moorhead, Kentucky, and then I'll be back in Lexington Thursday. I'm excited about the ribbon cutting for the Hill and Mary Britton, and then we'll have scholars here on Saturday.
Well, again, we thank you so much for taking time today. And Isaac, thanks for coming in, man.
Thank you for having me.
That's awesome. Hey, this is
Isaac, thank you. Good to meet you virtually. Hope to meet you in person soon.
Yeah.
Good to meet you too.
All right. 93.9 FM Radio Lex, broadcasting from STEAM Academy. We appreciate you coming along for the ride today to talk about budgets and Fayette County schools and all the good work that's being done. It is summertime, so we're going to go out with some old school jams. Thanks for tuning in.